Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick on the side of the comms, of course. Justin, he's back from his trip. And boy, oh boy. Remember when I said that I'd be back if something big happened? And sadly,
If the
wasn't
world
because
fell
that was the
apart.
same. If something big happened in the gaming industry. Sorry, unfortunately, I would have done it earlier, except I picked that week to. I picked that time to have my entire setup upgraded, so I had to reinstall everything, and what a time! And moral of the story, I guess, just be careful what you wish for, because the world in the games industry did kind of somewhat crumble, at least as far as the Destiny's face and Bungie's face is concerned, because, boy, Bungie stepped in it again. Add that to the counter of times they've done
Well,
that.
is it Bungie at this point, or is it specific leadership?
That's the good point. That is a good point that should be made, and I think I want to echo Bife's sentiments 2 weeks back when he said that now we have to really start distinguishing between Bungie as a corporation as far as their higher ups are concerned, and as far as the ground level staff are concerned. Because here's the thing: the staff here, as far as all the reports and all the reporting and all the claims say, are not the problem. It's the executives, like a certain executive known as Monsieur Pete Parsons. I believe that's the right executive. Hold up! Did I just accuse the wrong CEO? Not that that would be bad, because they're all kind of evil to some
They're all the
degree.
same in some regards.
But hold up.
But while he's looking for that,
Pete
basically,
Parsons, yes.
Pete Parsons.
Yeah, that's him.
But yeah, basically, some extremely dubious things have happened at Bungie, and a lot of it is extraordinarily shady.
Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of a mess because for those who, well, you probably have known, and I won't go over too much of it because honestly, you probably heard it on every end of the internet as is. And admittedly, like I said, I'm kind of late to the party, so I won't go over the whole thing. But quick summary, just for the sake of brevity. Bungie just decided to lay off, or should I say, Bungie executives decided to lay off an entire swath of their company, double-digit figures. I think we're talking like 13 something percent. I don't remember the exact numbers, but basically a massive swath of their company. Hundreds of people gone. While some people are being pulled over to Sony, that is not like, because here's the thing: Sony has moved in officially, and some of the people that have been laid off are going to be pulled over to Sony as a separate division under Sony to make a whole other game under them, which may be Gummy Bears, might not be. I don't even know at this point. And then there's going to be another sect that's going to be just a part of Sony, but also part of Bungie, but they'll answer to Sony. But again, the studio that's this new studio that's forming under Sony with the X people is not part of the straight layoff group. That is on top of the already several hundred people getting laid off. So yeah, it is a mess. Supposedly, all levels of the company have been laid off, including several executives. Fun fact that we know that two of the big names in Destiny have also been laid off, who were the heads of the kind of franchise overall. Hold up. I should have this pulled up in advance, but I'm an idiot and I don't. So, yes. Luke Smith and his compatriot Joe Blackburn are. Oh, wait. That's from a while ago. Anyways, Luke Smith and his compatriot are, whose name I can never flipping remember. I'm so sorry, but I don't hear from him enough. But not Joe, but someone else are leaving the company as well, and they were pretty up there. For those who don't know, Luke Smith was the original head of the Destiny game back in the day, and then at some point, Destiny 2, he got elevated alongside the other guy whose name I can't freaking remember because I don't ever hear of him ever. But to like the head of the Destiny franchise, so to speak. Like the whole point there was that there was like plans for like TV shows and expanded media, and that was being bounced around, but that never came to happen. Yeah, they're both gone. Though rumor is that both Luke and the other guy were not fired per se, but they were actually like they left of their own accord. But I don't know, maybe I'm just spitballing, but it could be one of those cases of kind of like, get out or get thrown out kind of thing. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, we haven't heard anything about the expanded universe of Destiny, so. Eh? So yeah, that all happened. So on top of the massive layoffs, we also got reporting from Jason Schreier, who did a massive expose article on this whole matter about those. You probably heard of the leaks, for if you've been following the Destiny scene, about the whole Destiny 3 and all that. And yeah, turns out all that was bogus, or at the very
Yep.
least, it was never in development.
There was nothing in development, nothing to be seen at all. Period.
I have Jason's article in the description below, as well as some of the other reporting done by Paul Tassi, who did do some of his own stuff. So look down there if you want more of the details on that. But basically, Jason said that, yeah, according to the people in Bungie, it was never done. There was no plans for D3 ever. The whole reason was that, according to Bungie, a D3 was too risky. Sure, right, because what you're doing right now isn't at all stable. But, whatever, I guess. So yeah, D3 it never was a thing, and instead they want to just, I guess, continue D2 into perpetuality? I don't know. According to Jason, the internal term being bounced around now isn't even expansions that they're going to be going with. They're going to be calling them content packs, I believe, which, yeah, that just screams red flags if you ask me, because that just kind of alludes to the idea that future content is just going to be shorter in general. I remember myself once joking that, like, after Final Shape, Lightfall will never leave my mind. After Final Shape was over and done with, that we might be moving into kind of almost like a World of Warcraft kind of situation, where it's like you don't get an annual expansion every year. You maybe get one every few years, something like that. The content is
You
slower
get like
and
some content, but it's like much minor.
much more sparse.
Yeah.
And it looks like that might very well be Bungie's plans with Destiny. Why they're doing this is beyond me. My guess is that they want to see about, like, right, because remember, let's take stock of what they have right now. They've got their Gummy Bears thing, which is like a MOBA thing, which will now apparently be moving under Sony. They've got Destiny, which is currently, due to Bungie's own, well, Bungie leadership's own idiocy, seemingly losing water at an almost critical pace. And then you have the whole other game that I have suppressed from memory. What was it called again, Justin? Um,
I don't know. Marathon.
Marathon. Thank you.
Marathon.
The whole mess has become such a big thing. My brain has just suppressed a lot of it. Marathon, which, as far as all the reports say, like, according to the internal reports, I think also Jason or other Paul mentioned this when they were doing their things, but supposedly there is a lot of hopes and pressure put on Marathon to succeed. Way too much, apparently, according to the rumors and reporting. Which, again, as far as all the numbers say, Marathon doesn't look good from the get-go. It's like this hero extraction shooter thing now, which, I mean, apparently when the players who played Tarkov, because that was big around the time this first got started off, they got brought in to play it, they were all like, yeah, no. All of the signs point to this just being yikes. And at this point, it's either a sink or swim situation, and call me a betting man if you want, but I'm wagering on sink at this point. So, I don't know. Oh, so what does this mean for the Destiny franchise? I honestly don't know. I genuinely think that, like, they need
Direction.
Marathon to succeed. They want it to succeed, and they need it to succeed, because it almost feels like they are. I don't want to say they're giving up on Destiny, because that feels like a very, very bad thing to say. But it definitely feels like they might be pulling stuff away, for the most part, from Destiny into putting in Marathon and hoping that that succeeds. Because, again, remember what we are at this. Let's take stock again of what's going on. Sony is footing the bills, but Sony is growing increasingly annoyed to the point where they are, again, starting to actually start acquiring Bungie. In fact, I think even Paul mentioned how this is kind of a sign that Sony is just slowly eating up Bungie, which again wasn't even the original plan when Bungie was bought by Sony. Sony bought Bungie with the hopes that Bungie could advise them on making MMO projects. However, Sony leadership, as far as we know, have either been unable to or simply will not discuss or make any effort to discuss these kinds of things. And with everything hemorrhaging, it looks like Sony has finally decided that they will run the show themselves. So, yeah, Sony will foot the bill for Bungie, but they aren't exactly happy about it. Marathon, well, like I said, all the signs point to Marathon being a disaster in the making. Maybe I'm wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong for the sake of the possible fallout of if I'm not, but I will reserve judgment till then. Chances are I won't play Marathon because I just don't like extraction shooters in general because I'm not gonna lie, looking at Marathon from the outside in, it just feels like some executive took a bunch of buzzwords, stuck them together, and made a game out of it.
Yeah,
Because
like the way how Marathon is kind of set up right now is basically the definition of, well, not really the definition, but like the epitome of what's going on with the industry as a whole, which is this
it's
is
trend
like a
chasing.
very big trend that is hitting really hard. Let's follow it. And that was the extraction shooter, and then a couple other extra little bits and pieces here and there sprinkle in with like a little bit of Destiny, Halo type stuff as Bungie do, and there you go. You had Marathon.
Yeah, like again, the marathon thing in and of itself doesn't sound like a bad idea. Once you strip away all the nonsensical buzzwords, the initial idea isn't bad. They want to bring back Marathon as a franchise. It was their original franchise. Sure, why not? I mean, Warframe is kind of finding a way to soft bring back Dark Sector in modern Warframe, at least in terms of theming and stuff like that. So again, it's not a hard pitch to make. You want to bring back, or at the very least, have a lot of references or stuff to your original franchise. Sure, why not? But the problem is the way they're going about bringing back Marathon. It feels like it's an attempt at bringing back a franchise, but it's, well, no, it should say it this way. It is an attempt at cashing in on a bunch of would-be trends wrapped up on the skin of bringing back an old franchise, which just doesn't seem like the way you should be going about doing it in the slightest, because it feels, number one, entirely disingenuous, and number two, there's no guarantee this will work. Because the problem with chasing trends is that, well, they're trends. Unless they're long-standing trends that end up becoming long-standing, like points in the genre, which is very often than not the case in just in everything, then you might just wind up with a dud that just feels a bit out of date by the time it ended up being finished. Because remember, extraction shooters are not the big thing anymore. At least I think they aren't. So, I mean, again, a kind of concept that is, a big budget version of Escape from Tarkov might be fun, but we will see. I probably won't play it because it's just not my genre.
No,
But again, as I said 100 times already, where does that leave Destiny? I don't think they will kill Destiny as a franchise. They physically can't.
no,
Because here's
it's
the
one
thing.
of their main sources of income independently.
It's their only source of income at this point.
Well, no, no. That there's still like what
I
is
mean,
it?
yeah, there's Sony, but Sony
Well,
needs,
no. Like the store for like physical items and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's all Bungie merchandise, mostly rooted through Destiny. Always
Yes.
rooted through Destiny. So again, they really can't kill Destiny. It's
No.
their real only source of money making when you strip away all the nonsense.
Yeah.
And so they need it to succeed. Because here's the thing, right? As I said before, call me a betting man, but let's run the dice. You've got a project that very well may fail and be. A lot of people are worrying that this may already be a DOA project. You've got Gummy Bears, which it's a MOBA, which don't even get me started. And you've got Destiny, a franchise which is profitable, perhaps a lot less so now because of certain current managerial nonsense involving cars, CEOs, layoffs, and all that other nonsense. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. But it is profitable, and it is still here. So they physically cannot get rid of Destiny. My biggest fear, and I will say this before and I'll say this now, is that going forward, especially now that we know D3 never was in the works to begin with, is that I'm afraid that D2 as a game might not survive long enough to see a next era or to see what comes next. Because here's the thing, right? When you look at the landscape of Destiny 2 right now, just right now, it ain't good. Yes, Final Shape was absolutely amazing. But then a lot of people said, okay, I'm going to go through Final Shape, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to see what's the end of the story, and then I'm going to leave. Or I'm going to see what comes in episodes, and then I'll reevaluate. So those people who came here and left, they've left. Those people who've come here and looking at episodes, they're probably leaving now en masse too, because, again, say what you will about Echoes, but mate, it's just not yet. Now, I can sit here for the sake of time and brevity and spin you 1,000 tinfoil hat theories, some of which I highly subscribe to, some of which I don't. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whatever the end result, whatever the reason for Echoes being like this is, it doesn't matter. Because this is what we've got. And a lot of people are looking at Echoes and calling episodes in its totality already just seasons with a reskin. Which, considering Bungie's habit of reusing assets, almost feels poetic. But the problem here is that it's causing an already somewhat hemorrhaging player base to hemorrhage faster. I myself am not impressed, but I, and I can't speak for Justin, but I at the very least, will be with Destiny until the servers probably go down when, just like Astacross's opinion, I will be here till the end, I'm just that kind of guy. But I can't speak for the rest of the community. I can't speak for Justin.
Yeah, no,
And
like, overall, a majority of the player base has basically left after major story-based events, and the people who might come back are the people who bought, like, the overall pass for all the episodes. Other than that, they're probably not going to stick around for a whole lot.
Yeah. I did that myself, but like I said, I'm a guy who's going to be sitting here till the end. I kind of did that with Anthem. But it's one of those things where it's like, we need something to bring people back into the community, to bring new players into the community, and to bring old players back into the community. Because right now, you can set up all the plot threads you want, but like I said, internally they're even calling future expansions, not even expansions anymore, they're calling it content packs, which, as I said, that's a whole ship's load of red flags right there. And that's going to make the problem only worse. And so my hope was always that a D3 isn't just something that's fun or a nice idea or something like that. It is necessary to bring new players in because you need something that is a good onboard to new players and a nice incentive to bring old players back. A lot of old players that I even saw in the comment section were literally like, hey, I'm going to leave now. I'll see you guys whenever the heck D3 comes around, if it does. And I believe them. I really do. But now we know that's not even going to happen. And even if Sony, after reading the room, sits down Bungie and says, make a D3, it'll take time. It will take time. I remember, if you guys were here a while ago from my other videos on this topic about Destiny and stuff, I scoffed at Paul Tassie's estimate that we might see a D3 in 2028, 2030 even, I don't know, some large number. I scoffed because I said, well, if they've already been working on it since Witch Queen, that means they've already got 2, currently 3, maybe years of development time as of right now. Well, now we know they were never working on it at all. So all those 3 years they might have had is up in smoke. And all because, like I said, according to their own internal estimates, it was too risky. Yeah, like this is somehow less risky. But, you know, my mild irritation of this whole matter aside, even if they start now, even if they do, I don't know if the player base in total can survive long enough to see a D3. I hope to Lords I am wrong. I hope to the Traveler I am wrong. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
It's
Like
extremely hard to tell.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, they need Destiny. They need Destiny. That is an unchanging fact. They need Destiny. Because right now, it's the only thing bringing them in money. Or should I say it's the only thing bringing in Sony money. And like I said, a MOBA is, yeah, it's a MOBA, sure, but let's be frank, a MOBA is not going to keep a several $1 million studio afloat. Unless you're, MiHoYo, in that case, it's a whole other ball of wax. But, a MOBA's a MOBA, and there's no way in all hell that Marathon is going to be anywhere near what they hope it to be. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe I will eat my words. Hell, I kind of hope I do. But, again, all the numbers point to no. And like I said, I'm a betting man. So, yeah. They need Destiny. They can't kill it. They need it. But I don't know if they're competent enough to keep it around long enough at this point. I don't know. What do you think about all this, Justin? I've been kind of taking up the airwaves.
See, have we gone into like where some of the Sony acquisition money has gone?
We haven't really covered the CEOs and the executives' nonsense.
No. Well, okay. We can go into that in a moment. For the moment here, though, like when it comes to the whole player base, I would say it's basically too late, because there are so many games that, although are so good nowadays, or games that launched very poorly but are like doing much better now, or games that just had terrible marketing but although were complete great games at launch and everything, it doesn't matter. All that matters is perception, and if perception is bad, then you're screwed, and perception is doing terrible right now. And that's going to be Bungie's biggest weakness overall as a company for what happens next.
True. I mean, heck, it's possible. I mean, here's the thing, right? On a more positive note, I will say that it isn't like, well, no, I'll go with this one, right? I see, and I'm not trying to, goodness no, I'm not trying to show shade at Byte for Cross or anyone else who are kind of saying, well, maybe this isn't such a bad idea, or maybe this isn't such a bad thing, right? I know Byte has been maintaining this kind of idea. Well, maybe not getting a D3 is not such a bad thing after all. I'm not trying to show shade at Byte, not in the slightest. He's a great guy, and he does great videos, and I've been watching him since D1 Taken King. So I've got a lot of respect for the man. So I'm not trying to throw shade at him, but I will say I find that idea a bit misplaced. Because, again, yeah, sure, we might get, like, his way of saying it is like, we might get a D3, sure, we might have. But with how Bungie's track record was, that D3 might have been janky, broken, yada yada. Insert 100 different reasons how Bungie could screw it up here. But, but we have a D2 that is functioning, that is working, that is this, so maybe that's not such a bad thing. And I won't lie, I see where he's coming from. I definitely do. And I see where people who make this case come from. But when you take the stock of everything around you, yes, it works. Yes, it is there. But people are slowly no longer wanting to engage with it. Yes. So yes. And again, people like him, people like I, will be here till the very end of it all. So it's easy for us to make claims like that. It's easy for me to make claims like that. But I know that people don't think that way. A very few people do. We are the exceptions here, not the rule. So, I don't know. And as you said, Justin, it's all about optics in this industry. That said, on again a more positive note, comeback stories have happened. This industry, and heck, Bungie themselves have more if not proven hundreds of times over in this industry, and just in general, that there is a way to rebuild one's reputation in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the whole debacle that came around Hello Games and No Man's Sky. That was a complete PR nightmare. Heck, let's look at something more recent, relatively speaking. Who remembers Cyberpunk? I remember Cyberpunk. I still play Cyberpunk. I mean, you remember CD Projekt? Yeah, I remember CD Projekt.
For God's sakes, like, fucking Fallout 76.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I played that at launch. I got the Black Voids of Death. Like, I got all those fancy little bugs. But nowadays, from what I'm seeing, it's a lot better now. But to me, I don't feel inclined to go play it. Like,
Yeah,
it is the nature of how these things work. If the perception is broken, the player base is likely to not come back.
that's the thing, right? On one hand, comeback stories do happen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Destiny made a whole like heck when Destiny first came out, back when D1 first came out. I remember all the memes. Still better than Twilight. You remember that meme? Yeah, I remember that meme. And yet they turned it around and made one of the biggest franchises in the gaming industry. So again, comeback stories can happen, but it's like you say, Justin, optics in this industry is everything. And heck, for every comeback story that was Destiny 1 and arguably Destiny 2's launch, because that was also something of a mess, we have in Cyberpunk and Hello Games, we have things like, Star Wars Battlefront 2. That's a name that hasn't been spoken in a while. And we have things like Fallout 76. That's a name that, well, it gets spoken occasionally, but let's be frank, never in a good light.
Yeah, like
These are,
nobody is going to feel inclined to go and play a game that they have felt jaded from. The only
yeah,
way that goes and gets melded is if not only the company does everything in their power to go and show that yes, no, what you were worried about is no longer a problem, that is no longer something that you need to worry about for this game. But that's very, very hard to do. Like,
that's the
it
thing,
is
right?
so hard to go and fix public reception.
It very much is. I mean, heck, sometimes we joke in this industry, Ubisoft has almost made that a hobby. They
Mm.
do something completely controversial and yet are masters of sweeping it all under the rug by saying, ooh, look at the new shiny thing. It shows that public perception in this industry is malleable and is subject to change. And like again, like you were saying, it is hard to come back to a game you feel jaded from. I mean, heck, I said Anthem earlier on in the video. The reason people stuck with Anthem and were so happy about the idea of a 2.0 being floated and that kind of thing is because, well, the bones of Anthem, arguably much like Destiny many years prior to it, were good. The reason people stuck with Destiny, the reason people stuck with it, well, were attempting to stick with Anthem till EA inevitably just moved on, is that the bones were good. Bungie makes great FPSs. Like I will
Bungie has
gladly
always
say
hit
that.
it.
They always have made good FPSs, and they still make good FPSs, despite all this nonsense and despite all this madness. And when it comes to Anthem, yeah, who wouldn't want to play as Iron Man? I mean, that was a fun concept. And it was really fun to play. I
And
remember pre-ordering it and
that's
playing it.
the
It
other
was
thing
really
about
fun.
it too, is
But
the fact that it was basically hitting like right around the time of like Titanfall and everything, and people were like really interested in that kind of concept of like a gameplay loop along the lines of like you're in a souped up suit of armor type of thing. Like people were really interested in that, and how Anthem had it set up is it would be like its own spin on like you have like this powerful armor that you go and run around in type of thing. Like
yeah, there
it,
was this power armor. And
yeah, like it was set up for a really good formula that could have hit really well. It just didn't.
that's the thing, right? And again, we could talk about how that happened. EA pushing it out the door too early for the
Mm.
sake of profits and yada yada yada. And arguably, when you think about it this way, you're starting to see a pattern here. Developers have good ideas, but maybe they really don't know what they're kind of focusing on or how they're doing. Someone needs to come in and kind of say, okay, do this, or they just need more time. But executives, they just see this and they say, next big money making opportunity, get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out,
Yep.
and it just falls apart. And here's the thing, like I said, in the case of Anthem 2.0, that might have saved the game if it were done right, because heck, 2.0s have also happened in this industry. People don't, maybe unless, people, at least in my circles, don't mention it often, but Final Fantasy Online had the same thing happen to it. It released a complete mess. And yet, Square Enix, and I think the president of, the head of the game, literally brought it off the market, retooled everything, remade everything, put it back up there as, Final Fantasy 2.0 or whatever the heck they called it. And guess what? Final Fantasy Online today is one of the most major money makers in the MMO space.
Yep.
So it can be done. It can be done.
The major factor in it all is, are the heads greedy? And if the heads are greedy, you're going to have a very hard time.
That's the thing. It comes down to, do they want it? Are they greedy? Do they want it? For every cyberpunk where CD quite literally had to do damage control and they wanted to do it, or Hello Games where they sat down, put their heads down, made a good game, and actually made what they promised in the end, if not more now, you have instances like Anthem where EA just kind of rushed it out the door, broke the game, gave it a bit to see if it could find its legs, and after a while of not seeing, I guess, the numbers they wanted, pulled the plug and moved back to the next FIFA game or something. I don't know. It's, you know, it's, do they want to do this? In the case of Bungie and Destiny, I believe the answer is yes. Maybe not because they want to. Maybe not, though I want to think they do. But because, like we've said before in this show, they need to. They have nothing else. Again, it's not like EA who has FIFA money to burn. It's not like Epic who has Fortnite money to burn. They don't have another big cash grab that can just shovel money into the furnace when something else doesn't work. They're not the Google of the gaming industry. They have only really one thing, and that is Destiny. And if Destiny flops, well, it's all on Marathon, or, well,
It's all downhill.
yeah, and I think that's the sad part, is that Bungie's executives are thinking that way about Marathon. It's all on Marathon now. But everyone, including myself, are looking at it and going, but that's not sustainable. Heck, even if it does kind of work and it does kind of succeed and Marathon does become a good game, that won't fix the Destiny problem. Or does this mean that if Marathon works, they'll just pull the plug on Destiny and move everything to Marathon? I don't know. Maybe. I want to think no, but I don't know. Like I said, they have an established IP in Destiny. They need it to work. I just don't know if it can survive long enough to see a future at this point. I hope I'm wrong, though. Anyways, I've dallied long enough. Oh, goodness, I keep forgetting to mention the executives.
Yeah, we'll close this off with what's the major problem right now with Bungie, and that's being the big head honcho who has decided to spend a whole bunch of money on new vintage cars, and there's been a few scenarios where he'll go in and go and show some Bungie employees, hey, here's some new cars. Also, we're gonna have to let you go. And
mind if I take this one?
yeah, if you wanna, yeah.
I think, like, here's the thing, right? Pete Parsons is a name that's definitely been flying around the industry a lot surrounding Bungie. He's the CEO, if you haven't already picked it up. And here's the thing. I'm a business student, and I'm not one to discriminate on one based on pure assets. I'll admit, I don't know what other assets Mr. Parsons has on his portfolio that could be funding these kinds of things. However, story goes that Mr. Parsons has been effectively buying, or should I say winning, big money vintage cars at a car auction. Effectively, when you do the numbers, it works out to about once a month or so, maybe more, for the last 2-ish years. Maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, about 1 or 2 years. And the problem is, right, as we've said 100 times in this episode, it's all about optics. Again, I don't know what Mr. Parsons has on his portfolio. He could have $100 million in Google stock options for all I know. Who knows? But it says a lot about it doesn't look good as a executive, as a CEO. Like, you ever had a job and the company will have a contract and they'll basically have you like, you're a representative of the company, don't do anything that makes it look stupid kind of thing? Well, here's the thing. I really don't believe that, like, well, it does apply to every level of company, but it makes a lot less of a message when it's like a ground floor employee, right? Ground floor employee does something, it could just be them angry at the company, yada yada yada. There's other ways to explain that way. But when you are the CEO of a company, when you are the COO of a company, when you're a C-suite executive, you have major optics of the company. You represent it very, very much. So when you have repeatedly told employees, to lay off, when you have repeatedly laid off entire swaths of your company, back in December or October or something, they laid off in a massive another like 3, 4, 5% swath, something like that. And now we've got double-digit percentages of being laid off, and yet at the same time, it comes out that you are spending God knows how much money every month to buy new vintage cars,
And
and yet you're
here's the
saying that to
thing.
the
It's not even this isn't even getting into where some of this money was reportedly originated from. Like
it's possible.
like some of this money has reported to have come from the Sony acquisition bill. Like the very
Right.
money that was brought in to go and help prevent layoffs.
That's the thing, right? Like, again, here's the thing. He's the CEO of a company. It's understandable he has a major stake in this amount of money that's coming in from the acquisition. It makes sense. It makes sense. And again, as a CEO, it probably means he has a major stake in that. However, it's all about optics. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it 100 times in this show. It's all about optics. Again, whether you sit here and, say it was. A lot of people say that it is not good, and that a good Bungie that comes out of this strong cannot endure with Pete Parsons as a thing. Because, again, regardless of whether you sit here and say this money was appropriated from the corporation to fund his car addiction thing, or whether you say this was just a result of him having a lot of money to burn because he had a lot of money to burn after the acquisition. Maybe, maybe not. The point is, it's about optics. You cannot lay off double-digit figures of your corporation in terms of percentage and say we're doing it for monetary reasons, yet you're turning around and buying $100,000 cars every month at auction. It doesn't work that way. Again,
See, here's the thing. It makes sense that like if you have a lot of money, you're a CEO and all that, you're gonna do your own thing. You're gonna pay for things, your own luxuries and stuff like that. That's fine. It's your own money. But the biggest shadiest thing about all this is the fact that like very likely that the very money that was like given by from Sony to Bungie in order to help prevent layoffs, the very fact that that very money could have been used for these cars instead of helping the company in any way is extraordinarily shady.
again, and that's the thing, right? We can't prove how much of this money unless he comes out and says it, or the financial team at Bungie comes out and says, which again I doubt that's private employee information. Which again, he's still an employee of the company and says, okay, this is the amount that was made from the percentage, this is the amount that went to Mr. Parsons, this is the amount that went to Bungie, da 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 da. Unless we sit down and look at their books and see indiscrepancies, we can't prove just how much of this was to Mr. Parsons' personal account and how much of this was to Bungie. Again, how much Pete made out of this, we don't know. And so that's the thing. You could sit here and say, maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but one thing you cannot say is that this was good looking. This is not a good look.
No.
And the fact that this has happened now twice within the span of a few months, that this mass layoffs have had to happen.
And
I agree with
mind you, the first set of layoffs was like around 100. This one is over 200. Like
Yeah, this is like
it's
several
only
hundred, I think.
grown. So there's more and more reason to be concerned about what is it that leadership is doing that they're just sinking money.
Right. It's always been known Bungie has a high burn rate, which, for those who don't know in the industry, is basically the amount of money that you spend as fast as you make. And because of how Bungie runs Destiny and stuff like that, the amount of money they're pulling in is basically immediately being spent in Destiny and everything else. That's why. And the reason we know this is because it came out in court documents when Bungie was shopping around for a buyer after Activision. It came out in court documents that Bungie, like, no one wanted to touch Bungie because they had a high burn rate, which made them very kind of risky. And again, that's not surprising, but there's burn rate and then there's this. Again, we can sit here and debate all day whether it was right for Parsons to do this. I personally think it's not. How he did this is a whole other story, but one thing you cannot argue is that it doesn't have it's not a good look. And under Parsons, under Pete Parsons, I do not see Bungie having a bright future. It's happened twice now, for pity's sake. It's setting a precedent, and it's not a good one.
No.
Anyways.
No, it's a whole big nightmare right now, and like we went and said about the whole player base type thing, like there's a possibility that things might work out, but like it's really hard for players to go and look at all this and think things are going to turn out well. Even more so when you really think about it, in the fact that like how many employees are basically being screwed over right now.
Exactly. I feel like I've been laid off myself in the past. I know how bad that can be. I sympathize with them. I truly do. And you gotta feel like they're the victims in all this, right? It's not just us, the players. It's them. They've lost their jobs, for pity's sake. And all possibly because of one man or several individuals' just avarice and greed.
Mm.
So, you know, there's nothing you can really say to them that makes this better, really. And I really do feel bad for them, honestly. But yeah.
It's a ship, and it certainly seems to be sinking.
I want to stay optimistic. I truly do. But I will say that, yeah, all of this would have been bad in and of itself. Again, the whole mess with CD proved that much. But when you have an already hemorrhaging player base due to the nature of where we are in Bungie's and Destiny's like story and everything, and then you add this on, the prognosis don't look good, Doc. Well, you never know, though. We both could be wrong. This could all turn out wonderfully, and God, I hope so. But hey, like I said, I'll at least be here till the bitter end, so let's sit on the sinking ship together. Pull up a chair. The deck's great. Alright then. We'll let you all go, because I think we've rambled enough, unless you want to add
We've carried it on very long enough. We've dragged you around in a bit of mud and tried to spruce you up and clean you up a little bit.
Then we ran you back to the mud again.
there is light. It's just we have to dig for it right now.
Yep. Oh well. Like I said, pull up a chair on the deck. The view's great. We'll be on the sinking ship together. So, that's this week's video, everybody. And again, sorry we couldn't get it out earlier. I couldn't get out earlier. I had to upgrade my entire setup and... anyways. Things happen at a bad time. Moral of the story, be careful what you wish for. Have a good week, everybody. Have a good one.